Alright, so we're going to look at X and Y intercepts in this video, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to find the X and the Y intercepts, and then how to use that to graph the equation. So the Y intercept we've talked about, that's the part of the equation, that's the place on the Y-axis where the line crosses. The X intercept is, not surprisingly, where the line crosses the X-axis. The X intercepts are going to turn out to be really important throughout the rest of the course. They'll have different names that we'll use to. Sometimes we'll use to talk about them. Sometimes we'll talk about them as the root, or the zero, or we'll talk about them as the solution to the equation. Now that's not going to be so important right now, but you're going to see it more as the course goes on. So I just want you to get a look at it to start. Okay, so the way we're going to do this, we're going to start with. I think we'll start with number 2 down here. We're going to find the X and the Y intercepts, the places where the line crosses the Y-axis and where it crosses the X-axis. And then that's going to help us to graph this line here. So let's start with, what we'll do is we'll say, let's suppose Y equals 0. What we'll do is we'll substitute 0 into this equation here. 0 equals negative 6/5 X plus 2. So 6/5 X equals 2. Multiply both sides by the reciprocal to get rid of that 6/5. So these cancel, and I end up with X equals 10 over 6, or 5/3, okay? Which is about 1.6 repeating. Okay, that tells me that when Y equals 0, X is 5/3. So I have a point at 5/3 0. Now think about where 5/3 0 is going to be. It's going to be, well, right about here. That's my X-intercept, right? So by finding the point when Y equals 0, I found the X-intercept. So this is my X-intercept. Let's do the same thing now to find the Y-intercept. We're just going to suppose X equals 0. We're going to plug X equals 0 into this equation, solve for Y. So Y is going to be negative 6/5 times 0 plus 2. So all I did was replace X with 0. Well, this is going to turn negative 6/5 times 0. It's just 0. So Y equals 2. That tells me that when X is 0, Y is 2. So I have a point at 0, 2. And this, 0, 2, that's going to be my Y-intercept. Alright, so now I have 2 points. I have my X-intercept at 5/3 0, and I have my Y-intercept at 0, 2. And now 2 points is all I need to draw that line. So my line looks like that. I don't know that this is a great way to graph a line when you have it in Y-intercept form. For me, if you have it in slope-intercept form, if you have it in slope-intercept form, I find it's easier to just, find the slope, find the Y-intercept, and graph it. But this is a way that also works. Now, another where this is actually, I think, more useful and is a good alternative way to do it is when you have a function or an equation in standard form, or not in slope-intercept form. Then finding the Y and X intercepts can be a little bit easier. So let's do the same thing we did here with number 4. So we'll start with setting Y equal to 0. So that tells me, so I've got 4X minus 0 equals 8. So 4X equals 8, and X equals 2. So when Y is 0, X is 2. So that means I have a point at 2, 0. And that's going to be my X-intercept. It's going to be right here, 2, 0. Okay, now we'll set X equal to 0 and substitute. 4 times 0 minus Y equals 8. 4 times 0 is 0, so negative Y equals 8, which means Y is negative 8. It tells me that when X is 0, Y is negative 8, so 0, negative 8. And that is going to be my Y-intercept. How do I know it's my Y-intercept? Well, because when you're on the Y-axis, X is always 0. How cool is that? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just fits there. So here's my Y-intercept, here's my X-intercept. That's enough to give me a line. If I could draw lines, which I can't. Okay, well, that looks good enough. All right. There's my line. I bet you can do better. Let's try one more that's like that in slope-intercept form. Let's try number 6 here, because it's got fractions, so it'll probably be scary for people. We'll start with setting y equal to 0. So 3/4 x minus 1/3 times 0 equals negative 2. Obviously, this is just 0. 3/4 x equals negative 2. To get rid of that 3/4, we'll multiply by the reciprocal, 4/3, on both sides. So, x equals negative 8/3, which is about, what is that going to be? It's about negative 2.6 repeating. So I've got a point at negative 2.6 repeating, comma, 0. And that's going to be, say, no, that's positive. Oops. It's going to be right about there. Okay. Now we'll set x equal to 0. We've got 3/4 times 0 minus 1/3 y equals negative 2. This is 0, so negative 1/3 y equals negative 2. Multiply by the reciprocal. So we get y equals, let's see, we'll multiply by negative 3, y equals positive 6. So we have a point at 0, 6. When x is 0, y is 6, and that's obviously going to be my y-intercept. So 0, 6 is, let's see, 5, 6. It'll look like, man, I'm not on it right now. That's not too bad. All right, so there's my line. And that's how we can graph a line using finding the y and x intercepts.